Hey everybody, welcome back. Stacey's here with me and we're looking at some fine art on the wall, and I thought it was funny. Over it, this whole wall has got art that was done here locally. We're going to just kind of walk by and talk about the historical events that we're watching happen unfold in front of our eyes. We're living through something that is just getting started.
We are.
And inflation's kicked off good, and as they try to tighten interest rates, it's starting to kill the economy, and the banks are collapsing, and they're experiencing a liquidity crisis, which usually happens in a recession and depressions. You know, this is par for the course. Now, what's different is the banks are getting bailed out with your money. Make no mistake about it. As they raise interest rates, it's really strange. It's some kind of quantitative easing with tightening. We're going to get into a couple of stories with Janet Yellen, and we're going to talk
Jerome
about
Powell, all those different things, that's going on, what they're doing to the banks, inflation, is the interest rates and all that kind of stuff. It's actually, they're hurting the banks. They're hurting the investors that are actually doing companies right now, and so the investors are struggling to get money, and so therefore they're going to pour the money out of the banks. Yeah,
it's really interesting. So guys, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell if you like this kind of content, especially if you like that sign that's got a hole cut out in the middle of a mask that says "over it."
I got a better one for you. I got a better one for you.
The cat's over it. Look, he's done with it.
There's I got a better one for you.
No more mask in the middle.
Look, check this one out.
Well, let's go slow. What is this?
No, check this one out right here.
He's got weird fingers.
Said, "I'd like to be a machine. Wouldn't you?"
No.
No, I would not like
to
be a machine.
Not at all.
But anyway, so let's get to it real quick where we're talking about. So basically the headline says...
Go to the, this is off the hedge.
Yep, so it says basically the Fed broke the banks. So let's go back to when we're talking about the Silicon Valley Bank. And basically, how did it break down? Like, how did it become to the point where these people started pulling their money out of the banks? And basically, they raised interest rates, and the Fed had to do that. They said to fight inflation. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. That's the only tool they got.
So that's the only
to
tool
fight inflation is raise interest rates.
Yep. So they were fighting inflation. So they raised interest rates, and now then all these credited investors and these they said, wait a minute. So now I cannot afford the cost. So I'm going to have to pull money out of your bank to even pay my bills, to pay my employers, and now they're not putting money back in the bank, and so Silicon Valley Bank said, whoa, okay, so I have no more money, so now I'm going to have to start selling bonds, stocks, all this kind of stuff to raise capital.
10-year bonds early,
Yep.
So they had to take a loss on them, something like 75 cents on the dollar. Other investors saw this. As usual, the game's rigged. They knew early. A lot of them started getting out, and it's a big club, and you ain't in it.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Yep.
I always like that one.
So, but there's been a lot of other banks now that are seeing the exact same thing. We've seen, I don't know how many more. We've talked about this before.
There's several. Here's the point. The point is the banks are experiencing a liquidity crisis, and this should be part of it. Now, I'm going to play a clip in a minute as we get into the next story about Pocahontas, and she's talking about, she's talking straight to Jerome Powell. She's jumping in already about intervene, we can't raise interest rates anymore, Jerome. You're going to take 2 million jobs minimum, probably more.
Raising interest rates is designed to slow the economy and throw people out of work. So far, you haven't tipped the economy into recession, but you haven't brought inflation entirely under control either. And maybe the reason for that is that other things are also keeping prices high, things you can't fix with high interest rates. Things like price gouging and supply chain kinks and a war in Ukraine. But you are determined to continue to raise interest rates, so I want to take a look at where you're headed. In December, the Fed released its projections on the state of the economy under your monetary policy plan. According to the Fed's own report, if you continue raising interest rates as you plan, unemployment will be 4.6% by the end of the year, more than a full point higher than it is today. Chair Powell, if you hit your projections, do you know how many people who are currently working, going about their lives, will lose their jobs?
The other side is, it only wants to experience prosperity for their whole life, and whatever's left over after their life, they don't care about. They want all the resources for themselves, and they're going to lie, cheat, and steal to get that way. And all they have to do is get elected again. Let's not forget about that. Yep. That's what they're after, is to get elected one more time.
Yep, and there is no term limits, which completely amazes me. Everything has term limits in life. That is one thing that does not have term limits.
I don't have that number in front of me. I will say it's not an intended consequence.
But it is, and it's in your report, and that would be about 2 million people who would lose their jobs, people who are working right now, making their mortgages. So, Chair Powell, if you could speak directly to the 2 million hardworking people who have decent jobs today, who you're planning to get fired over the next year, what would you say to them? How would you explain your view that they need to lose their jobs?
I would explain to people more broadly that inflation is extremely high, and it's hurting the working people of this country badly. All of them, not just 2 million of them, but all of them are suffering under high inflation, and we are taking the only measures we have to bring inflation down.
And putting 2 million people out of work is just part of the cost, and they just have to bear it?
Well, will working people be better off if we just walk away from our jobs and inflation remains 5-6%?
Let me ask you about what happens if you do this. Since the end of World War II, there have been 12 times in which the unemployment rate has increased by 1 percentage point within 1 year, exactly what you're aiming to do right now. How many of those times did the U.S. economy avoid falling into a recession?
It's not as black and white as very
just
very
looking
infrequent.
at the numbers. It actually is pretty black
Alan
and white.
Blinder's written a book on this.
There have been 12 times that we've seen a 1 point increase in the unemployment rate in a year. That's exactly what your Fed report has put out as the projection and the plan based on how you're going to keep raising these interest rates. How many times did the economy fail to fall into a recession after doing that, out of 12 times?
I think the number is 0.
I think the number is 0. That's exactly right. So then the question becomes, we've got 2 million people out of work. Can you stop it at 2 million people? History suggests that the Fed has a terrible track record of containing modest increases in the unemployment rate. Once the economy starts shedding jobs, it's kind of like a runaway train. It is really hard to stop. In fact, in 11 out of the 12 times that the unemployment rate increased by a full percentage point within 1 year, unemployment went on to rise another full percentage point on top of that. If that's what happens this time, we'd be looking at least 3.5 million people who would lose their jobs. So, Chair Powell, if you reach your goal and 2 million people get laid off by the end of this year, and then, just like in 11 out of 12 times that unemployment has risen by a point in a single year, it keeps on rising, and then we've got 2.5 million people out of work, we've got 3 million people who get laid off, we've got 3.5 million people who get laid off. What's your plan?
Well, right now the unemployment rate is 3.4%, which is the lowest in 54 years. And we actually don't think that we need to see a sharp or enormous increase in unemployment to get inflation under control.
I'm looking at your projections. Do you call laying off 2 million people this year not a sharp increase in unemployment?
I would say 4.5%.
Explain that to the 2 million families who are going to be out of work.
We're not targeting any of that. But I would say even 4.5% unemployment is well better than most of the time for the last 75 years.
In other words, you don't have a plan to stop a runaway train if it occurs. Chair Powell, you are gambling with people's lives.
Here we go. We got some more wall.
Yeah, we got a lot of wild-looking art. I wish I just don't have an artistic bone in my body when it comes to painting.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's amazing I was good at welding because I really excelled at that. But as far as writing and stuff like that, drawing, I don't know what's going on here. Is that a mushroom on his head?
I think that's a term. I think it's a Mardi Gras something. No, I don't know what
do
that
you guys
is.
think?
I don't know. Let's see.
We're going to leave that alone.
All right, but real quick, I also want to talk about, so now Yellen has come out. We've talked about all the different small banks and how you try to stay.
Let's go over here.
Okay, go this way. How we try to stay, local with small banks and all that. But small banks now are going to start facing issues, sounds like, also, because if you got the big banks that cannot fund, then you're also going to have, then they're taking banks from the smaller, funds from the smaller banks, it sounds like, and they're trying to fund the big banks, because the big banks, they say, cannot fail. So now Janet Yellen has come out, and she has publicly stated, and I quote, let me read right here for you guys. She has said, Yellen states that the U.S. will intervene if needed to protect smaller banks.
Let me look at this picture.
All right.
Looks like they're in the river.
That's local.
That's
DC.
the Red
No,
River Bridge,
yeah,
but I can tell you those people aren't in there.
Look, there she's taking a selfie.
Yeah, that's par for the course.
But
I don't know what this is.
Who knows?
It's funky art.
But Yellen has come out and she has said that they're going to intervene if they need to protect smaller banks. All right. So what does that mean for you guys? What does that mean for us? Because we're in smaller banks, as we've all said. We're in several smaller banks. And she's come out and said that the U.S. government could repeat the drastic actions if they took recently to protect the bank depositors if smaller lenders are threatened.
Yeah, so
there's
it's UBBBI. UBBI, Universal Basic Bank Income. The government's going to backstop all the banks. Doesn't matter if you're big or small. Bailouts on top of bailouts, on top of bailouts.
Yep. I just had someone call me the other day, and they said, I hate to say this, but they were from some other countries, and they said, we're going to the exact same thing that Venezuela just has happened now. I said, man, I hope you're wrong. And then I had a couple people call me the other day, and they said they're only allowed now between accounts that they have, they're only allowed to transfer around $2,000 a week between accounts that they have there. And then I had someone call me the other day that they were trying to buy precious metals, and they were trying to figure out how that they could do it because the wire transfer, they were being questioned and they were being held up and different things. So it's just one more, it seems like, thing, one more glitch. I don't know.
No, well, there's a glitch in the banking system is the problem. I mean, and it's odd that it's not on all the news channels. There ought to be people legit freaking out. I mean, but they're doing their best to try to suppress that. The last thing they want is, really, I hate to jump on here and say, get all your money out of the banks.
No.
If you start doing that to the little banks, it's going to be like that movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And Mr. Potter is one of the big banks.
Yes, we watch that every Christmas. I make him watch that every Christmas.
I heard Glenn Beck talking about that.
Look at this one right here. I got to show you this one right here. Look at this. What do you think about that one? It says, "My circus, my monkeys."
My circus, my monkeys.
I'm not sure what to think about that one.
She's chrome. That's wild.
Oh, anyway.
Let me know what you think about the clip of Pocahontas approaching Jerome Powell. Is it like she knows absolutely nothing? Like we can just not raise interest rates because we're going to lose jobs? I mean, is that a valid reason to keep inflation going? It doesn't. These people don't know what's going on. They're absolutely missing it, big time. And I know one thing for sure, Jerome wants to go down in history as the Paul Volcker.
Yes, he does.
As the Paul Volcker of the 80s, broke the back of inflation. That is his goal. Yep. That's what he wants to do. And you've got the other side wanting to not do it because they don't want to take the medicine. They don't want to. They don't want to go through the hangover, out of all this. When they're printing money, it's essentially giving drugs and alcohol to the economy. And you can only do that so long, and you have to come off of it. You've got to come off of it and equalize. And they do not want to. They are junkies that are hooked. And if you stay on it too long, it will kill you. And if that doesn't kill you and you get off of it too late, the detox will kill you. So,
well, they want to be reelected. So if they make the people
that's
hurt,
it, guys.
They're going to not get reelected. So they're going to do everything they can to make it sound good. It's
crony capitalism that is really starting to pick up right here at the end of it. Right at the end, it's really starting to take off. So just, do everything we talk about. The cow that I mentioned yesterday, that is such a blessing, guys, to have a whole calf in the freezer. And I know some people can't afford it. You maybe can afford a half a calf. Just, meat's going to get more expensive in my I don't see how it's going to go down. I can't see
Well, I
it.
say this all the time. You can afford it if you budget correctly. Most people can. You just got to cut out the frivolous spending. And
But we eat at home. That's our biggest. That's how we're able to afford all the good foods, because we cook at home. We don't go out.
No.
It's so expensive to go out and eat.
It is.
It's $100 bill to get some mediocre food that makes her sick and is not that good.
Well, matter of fact, he was traveling the other day, and what'd you say it cost you in the airport? How much for one meal?
It was like $60 or $70.
It was ridiculous, and it tasted horrible. So we just fast. Whenever we go places like that now, we
It
just
is fast. It's too easy. And for all you guys that think you can't do it, I know you can. And for all you guys that can do it for like 7 and 10 days at a time, more power to you. I'm not there yet, but maybe I will be one day.
Yeah.
So, guys, have an awesome, awesome day. If you like the art video and us just walking and talking, looking at it, put #art in the comments. That way I know you suffered through all the art. Have an awesome day. Later.